Branding is a concept that has been growing in the last few years. A lot of people is using it, but not everybody knows what branding really is or how to implement a good branding process. That is the reason why we decided to start with this first episode of Talking with Branders. Welcome. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us to this first episode of Talking with Branders. I am Luis Vergara, and today we are going to explore the amazing concept of branding, talking with a great brander. Today, our special guest is Steven Picanza, a global branding consultant and educator. He is the co-founder and chief brand strategist of Latin and Code, a consulting agency focused in branding and marketing. Thank you, Steven, for accepting our invitation to talk here in this first episode of Talking with Branders. Can you share a little bit about yourself, about your background in branding?
Sure, Luis, and it's a pleasure to be here for this first episode. I feel honored. I've never been on the first episode of anything. But anyway, yeah, as you said, Luis, I'm Steven Picanza, and my background is pretty varied. So currently, I'm a brand strategist. I work with a lot of brands on helping to define and clarify their message and their direction. I also am an adjunct professor at Drexel University in Philadelphia. I teach branding as well as the Institute of Design in Milan as an international instructor. So once a year I go out there and I teach a master class on branding. And really my background, just real quick, I started my first agency in 2008. And in 2012, my business partner and I successfully exited from each other. And I got to go work for some awesome agencies and working with some really top-notch brands that everyone's heard of, from the Mirage Hotel and Casino to the Art of Shaving and Sony and all these cool brands. And then eventually I found myself as a consultant again, help brands make the smartest decision possible when it comes to branding and marketing channel allocation. Unfortunately, the barrier to entry is really low these days to become a marketer or to become a brand, or anyone who has an Instagram account or a Facebook page can now be a guru. And so, but it doesn't do good for businesses, right? Businesses need strategy. They need ROI. They need results, not just a shiny, bright new object.
Yeah, no, and that is the reason what we decided to start with talking about what branding really is, because sometimes people and sometimes professionals, they're still thinking that branding is just like to design a logo or right, just to change your image, your designs and your colors, and they used to think that that's branding. So what do you think is branding for Steven? What is branding for Steven Picanza?
Yeah, and it's, you hit the nail on the head, Luis. I talk to so many businesses. A big part of my career as a consultant, I help brands find agencies. So I work with an organization called The Agency Guy, and we represent about 225 different agencies and consultants across North America. And we provide free strategy to brands in the hopes of matchmaking them to their agency. So I have a lot of brands that come to me and they say, Steven, you're the brand guy of the organization. I need brand help. I need a new logo. I need a new design. And oftentimes I hear that, and we all know branding is not your logo. I'm not going to beat that one up over, I'm not going to beat people up over that one, but we're going to distill down that, yes, you do need a new design and you do need a new website, but let's peel back the layers, because branding is not what you say it is, Mr. Business Owner or Mr. CEO. It's what your customers say it is. So what do your customers think about the brand? And is that aligned with what you think about the brand? And how is your brand playing in the sea of competitive and the sea of, in your industry? So essentially we're trying to find out, well, what's your position? And so what branding is for me is, besides stating, hopefully, what I stated earlier, it's not what you say it is, it's what your audience says it is. Branding, it's all about that strategy. It's all about that vision. It's all about knowing when to pivot and how to pivot. And this is especially true in the age of COVID, in the age of pandemic. Branding allows you to stay on top of your audience, on top of your product development, really on top of everything. In one of my classes, I mentioned earlier, I teach at Drexel University. I teach a sort of a branding, 101 class, I guess we can call it. One of my core points of this first class is to really differentiate or look at how similar your brand strategy and your business strategy play together. One, everyone thinks you need to start with the business strategy, about the business strategy, but so many questions we're going to answer in the business strategy start with the brand strategy. Who your audience is, how much you should be pricing, what kind of content they need, the marketing content plan, all this stuff is all based on how well you have a brand strategy. How much thought did you put into it? So when you ask me what branding is, it opens up this whole Pandora's box. But again, at the basic level, it's what everyone else says it is. It's not about you. It's about them, your audience.
Yeah, no, and you say something that I think is very important, that one thing is the business and another thing is the branding, the brand strategy. Because people or entrepreneurs, when they are thinking in create their businesses or their brands, the first thing they are thinking is make money. Okay,
Right.
so but they don't understand the process behind to build this brand and build this business, right? So maybe that is the reason why branding is so important for professionals, for companies,
Right.
for
Right.
organizations. So what do you think is so important branding for a brand, for a company?
It's about alignment. I say it all the time, right? Do you operate with your core values and your day-to-day actions aligned? And I think so many brands, they have a mission statement, they have a vision statement, but do they really know why they're doing what they're doing? And alternatively, does that why statement of why you're doing what you're doing fit within those core values and fit within that day-to-day action? So for any time I'm looking at a business or consulting with the business, whether it's an entrepreneur who's trying to solidify their personal brand, or it's an enterprise business or a nonprofit, B2B, B2C, D2C, you pick your acronym. Uh, Number one, are you confusing your customers with your messaging? It's the first thing I'm looking at. It's such a huge part of the branding process, and often gets overlooked is the message. The words that your audience reads become so important. So for me, I gravitate towards the words first. The design, we can always make cool design. We can always make great logos. There's a lot of awesome design, but if your words don't match that design, the design is fluff, then it's not necessarily impactful. And is it leading your customer to a conversion point, whatever that conversion point may be? Sign up for my email, download my product, buy my product, whatever it is. That's what we have to be branding. That's what we need to be messaging toward. That's why our brand is so important, so we can get that person to perform that action at the lowest cost possible.
So what do you think brands are doing wrong when they are trying to work with branding?
Not pay attention to their messaging. Luis, I see it all the time. Steven, why isn't anyone converting on my website? And I go to their website and I look and I was like, because you're not telling them to. Like I seriously, like you go to a website and you see a lot of buttons that say learn more. What the hell does that do for anyone? I'm already here. I'm already on your website. You've got me here reading your website. Why do I need to learn more? I'm already here. Don't tell me to learn more. Tell me what to do. Buy now, convert, sign up for my email. So I think a lot of brands are becoming aware that branding is more than just a logo, that branding is more than design. But I don't think that they fully understand that branding really comes down to the strategy that you have, and the strategy is encompassing of your audience, you internally as a business, your competitors. All those three things make that brand strategy what it is, coupled with the messaging. If you're familiar with Donald Miller and the story brand, right? If you confuse, you lose. It is so true, and I'm seeing it across the board. Now, a couple months ago, we all got stuck in quarantine, right? A lot of a lot of businesses are shuttered, and I'm fortunate because my phone hasn't stopped ringing. My phone hasn't stopped ringing because businesses now are saying, how do we navigate these waters? What do we do right now to sell online, be visible, create, how do we navigate again, how do we survive this? And I feel like the webinar I'm giving over and over and over again is, do you have the right messaging strategy? Do you have the right brand strategy? Do you have a sales funnel? Like what we in the branding world might think fundamental, but 90% of the businesses out there are lost. They're like, oh yeah, I have brand guidelines. Here's 85 usage, 85 do's and don'ts on my logo. What good does that do when you know who your audience is? Like that's what needs to be included in the brand guidelines. So I think what brands are not doing well is they're not thinking deep enough on their brand, right? Like the expression, don't go 5 miles wide and 1 inch deep. Go 1 inch wide, 5 miles deep. So tell me about, in your brand guidelines, in your brand strategy documentation, make sure you have your personas you're going after, the messaging that's going to work, your voice, your values, your purpose, your ethos, your narrative. And then you give me all the design do's and don'ts and all of your creative. That document becomes so important because it's going to help you keep your employees energized on your brand, right? Does everyone from the janitor to the CEO have the same brand story? Are you able to recite the same true north statement? It's going to keep your partners and aligned with you. If you're able to distribute an awesome document that has everything about your brand, how to use it, how to talk about it, the words that we use, these impact statements, your vendors and your partners that you're using never have the opportunity to go rogue. So it's going to keep your brand in control. That's what real brand guidelines should be doing. That's what this brand documentation and this foundation should be doing, is allowing you to control and insulate as much as the brand as you can, knowing that the big caveat in branding is it's your audience that's eventually going to make your brand what it is, not necessarily you. You can only do so much. So my take is, let's control this as much as we can, and hopefully your audience resonates with this, and you've created a bond and a relationship, and then your brand is sustainable. It's just iterative process.
Yeah. Well, now that you were talking about this new challenge that brands are facing with the COVID-19, with the coronavirus, do you think that maybe brands need to do like rebranding, or they just need to adapt and work and maybe try to figure it out how to work with their current branding process and how to adapt this branding process in their brands, in their companies?
Yeah. Do brands need to rebrand now, or how do they pivot at this point? The word rebranding scares people, right? People don't want to rebrand. It's a scary term. What do you mean I have to anytime you use the word I have to redo this? It's not right. No. It's an evolution, right? We're all evolving. Personally, we've all evolved. As consumers, we do not shop the same way we did in February, right? Now we shop differently. We have different things on our mind. Brands need to understand that the audience has changed forever. Your audience is not the same audience that you used to have. They're very similar, but they're also drastically different at the same time. So I think brands need to take a step back and reevaluate the foundation and understand what is still relevant and what needs to be improved. And I think part of this becomes an exercise in leadership, right? Like brand leadership. Are you being empathetic with your audience, with your employees, with your partners, with your vendors? But at the same time, are you also being authoritative, right? We don't want to be a brand that doesn't seem, we all need our brands that we revere to almost guide us in a way, right? And so we don't want the brand that we look up to be faulty or not seemingly understand how to navigate again these waters. So what I think happens is, as we start to look at our foundation and as we start to put the emphasis on our foundation, we're going to look at natural opportunities, not opportunities to pivot, right? How do we make money in the next 30, 60, 90, 120 days? How do we reposition our service offering? How do we re-message, right? How do we change our messaging to be relevant today? do we need to repackage one of our offerings, right? Maybe if it's a physical good, maybe we actually need to do a different packaging scheme. Or if we sell a service, I sell a service, maybe I have to repackage how I'm selling this service to be adaptive to the market trends. And so I think the one thing that brands can do is take a look at your brand strategy, take a look at your foundation and reassess it, and use this as an exercise to say, don't just do this once and forget it. It's like getting an oil change in your car. You don't buy a new car and never get an oil change, right? Don't get a brand. Don't put all this emphasis in a brand and never have a maintenance program on it. Every quarter or at least twice a year, spend the time, looking at your audience. Is the audience still relevant? Are they still super fans? Are you still on the way to creating super fans? How are you in the competitive landscape? Internally, are we still all aligned on our goal, on our vision, on our 5-year plan, on our 30-year plan, whatever the plan you have? Is everyone aligned? So I think that's where brands need to, and then making sure that you get that maintenance plan, that you are working towards this all the time, because pandemics, right? There's going to be more cataclysmic and bunny ears events that are going to turn that's going to make brands really think about their position. And
maybe what you were saying is that one good advice for brands is that they need to adapt instead to change, right? They don't need to change at this moment. They need to adapt what is happening right now.
Absolutely. Don't abandon your laurels, right? And also everyone's on TikTok, so you go on TikTok because that's where you think that everyone needs to be. No, we need to course correct in small micro milestones to make sure that we're continuously still aligned with our audience. If all of a sudden our audience goes on TikTok, then yes, by all means, go on TikTok, but don't just chase the shiny, bright new objects. Yeah, we need to be adaptive, not necessarily have these drastic changes. Nobody likes these drastic changes, both internally in the organization and externally with your consumers.
So what do you think, or maybe what would be some advices that you can share for our audiences, for brands, about how to implement a good branding strategy?
There's a good expression we use. It's hard to see the label when you're stuck inside the jar. And what this means is oftentimes this is where some outside perspective can really active it is. You don't want to be so close to the brand that your judgment is cloudy because, again, you're so close to the brand. You can't, again, get out of the way. So I think some really quality advice on how you can implement today is work with someone who understands your organization, but is maybe not directly inside your organization, and have them perform some basic discovery analysis on the brand. So for example, looking at the competitors, surveying your customer. I guess really what I'm getting at is this is where working within in the branding environment, I've seen it all too often, Luis, where brands think that they could do it all by themselves. I could do this myself. And what happens is they realize that they can't, that they're too close to it. And then in the end, it's going to cost you more time, money, and frustration because you're too close to the problem itself. And so, but tactically, and that's just me getting a little bit metaphorical and going out there, tactically, what you can do, survey your audience. Right now, go to your audience, put a survey together on Google Forms, incentivize them with a $50 gift card, and ask them 10 questions that you are dying to know. Has our communication method changed? Are you still buying our type of product or service? Why? Why not? Ask your audience these questions today. Make that like your number one priority, because you're going to get back all this data. And essentially the data you're going to get back is them telling you, this is how we want to communicate with you. This is how we want to purchase from you. And that's going to help drive, hopefully, your brand strategy a little bit and be the start that you need.
Okay. Well, just to finish, Steven, after all you were sharing and all we were talking, what do you think is like the key to work with branding?
Patience and patience and understanding that there is a process for a reason. Um, I think too many times organizations think that patience, because there isn't necessarily an attributable ROI that is directly, again, attributed to branding, right? It's not like, oh, we went through a brand foundation and now we just made $55,000 in revenue that we didn't have before. Thank you, branding. It's not going to work out like that. Branding is going to allow you to market smarter, market more effectively, market more efficiently, do your sales outreach a lot more effectively. So the key to branding is having patience and knowing that if you follow the process, you're going to see success down the line, but don't expect it to happen overnight. It's a process for a reason. Rome built in a day.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Steven, for being here in this first episode of Talking with Branders and sharing all your experiences working with brands and with branding.
Thanks for having me. And if you want to reach out, if anyone in the audience wants to reach out, you can always find me at latinandcode.com. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, Luis.
Okay, thank you. And thank you everybody for listening this first episode of Talking with Branders. I hope you enjoyed this first interview with Steven Picanza. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and keep listening our new podcast where we are going to share a lot of interviews with amazing branders around the world in Spanish and in English. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye.